priesthood is one of the vocations of the church. The word vocation literally means calling. Jesus calls people, calls men to the priesthood. And he calls men who are sometimes exactly who you think should be priests. Like from the time that they were kids, like they grew up and maybe they were, playing mass, and they always imagined themselves as priests. Maybe they knew lots of priests from home coming to visit the house. And then God also calls unlikely men that other people maybe wouldn't suspect would have a vocation to the priesthood. God sometimes calls them as well to the priesthood. There's a great expression about the priesthood that God doesn't call the qualified, but he qualifies the called. I was a young fella that no one ever said I should be a priest. No one ever said that to me, never crossed my mind, and didn't cross most people's minds when they thought of me. I never thought about it when I was a young fella. In fact, it took really me coming to the end of my high school, my secondary school time, and being faced with the question of what was I going to do with the rest of my life. It took that moment for me to finally sort of consider the possibility of priesthood. I was friends with priests. I was a member of my youth group when I was growing up, but I had never thought that I could be a priest. One day that changed. I was leaving my local parish church, and I was walking outside in just the hallway that leads to the front door. And as I walked out, I saw this vocations poster, this poster that had pictures of all of the seminarians from the diocese. And the poster said, posed this question. The poster said, "If not you, then who? And if not now, then when?" And that mightn't mean anything to you, but that hit me like a ton of bricks. It hit me right between the eyes. I had never considered until that very moment that God could possibly be calling me to the priesthood. And the strange thing was, when I first thought about it, when that thought first entered my mind, I found it really attractive. Like, I could see myself doing that. Now, this was very strange because I was very far from God. I was not a holy person. I wasn't praying all the time or anything like that. I just, but for a variety of reasons, God had really prepared me in that moment to hear that call. And that's when I first started thinking about the priesthood. I had this initial enthusiastic response to the possibility of being called to be a priest. I found it attractive. And so I started to explore this. I went to my local vocations director. So this is the person that's in charge of kind of interviewing candidates, interviewing different men who are maybe interested in the possibility of priesthood, answering their questions, and then pointing them in the direction of different religious communities or a seminary where men go and study to become priests. So I went down to this seminary in order to kind of discern or to think about the possibility of priesthood, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. There were all these men, and on the surface level, these men were great fun. Like, we just had an absolute blast. I stayed the night down there. We hung out. We had lots of good food. We chatted and stuff. We played cards. It was just like it was my first experience of real brotherhood. I saw what they had together, and I thought, that's really great. I would actually love something like that. And I ended up joining the seminary. It wasn't until I joined the seminary, though, that I really started to think about priesthood and all of the sacrifices that you'd make as a priest. What did it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And what did it mean to be a priest like Christ is? And that's when I started to really lose my nerve. That's when I started to get afraid. I remember one day, this was a very decisive moment for me. I remember one day being in the chapel. I remember being in Eucharistic adoration. And I was praying there before the Blessed Sacrament, and I was so anxious. I was so overwrought with anxiety because I thought, I don't know, is God calling me to be a priest? Do I have what it takes? do I want to do this? All I could think of were the sacrifices. All I could think of were the things that I would be giving up. And there was a moment that I had with Jesus there on the altar in the Eucharist. I remember very distinctively the voice of Christ speaking in my heart, not audibly, but speaking in my heart. And Jesus said to me there, as I was anxious and really questioning why I was there, Jesus said to me, if I am calling you to be a priest, I'm not calling you to be miserable. And I thought, that's right. It was exactly what I needed to hear. It totally freed me from that anxiety and that fear. And I started to think of all of the priests that I knew. These were men who loved what they had dedicated their lives to. If they could live 1,000,000 lives, they would choose every single one of them to be a priest. And I thought to myself, truly, to follow Jesus, if this is my calling, if he's calling me to this, this is going to be a life of great fulfillment, a life that is full of love. This was going to be a chance to join in this incredible mission.